Good morning and welcome to another Inspiring Conversation podcast with me, Ekta Bajaj. I am the author of the book, The Voice of Kali, and the co-founder of a beautiful company, Author in Me, where we empower people to express themselves using storytelling as a tool. And of course, storytelling is all about being mindful of where you are, about understanding yourself, about understanding your challenges and fears and putting them across in a very unique expression that is very unique to you, and that's what we do. And today I'm really delighted to have Matthew Allman with me. He is the founder of Simpila Mental Health. And Matthew, I will let you introduce yourself and give your beautiful introduction, which you have kindly given to me before the podcast, but we did not record that.
Oh, well, thank you so much. Thanks for the invitation, Ekta. I'm so happy to always have the opportunity to talk about, the things we're doing and what's going on with mental health in particular and my world. Yes, I am Matt Holman, and I'm the founder of Simpila Mental Health. Founded the company back in 2016, actually at a point when I was struggling with my own mental health challenges. So it's quite sort of a poignant piece around sort of why, my purpose and my why was driven by my experience of life. And big conversation or big story I guess I could tell around that. We'll save that and maybe get into some of that as we go. But the idea of Simpila Mental Health is to engage and encourage more conversations of mental health. And I think that is so important in today's world. We are seeing more challenges than ever. We're seeing more people who are struggling than ever. And now's the time to raise the conversation. So I'm very passionate about this subject because I have my own personal lived experience through a 20-year corporate career where I didn't really take care of myself. So that was a big learning lesson for me. Things changed in 2016 when all of a sudden I found myself being removed from a position, which was very brutal and created its own chaos. And I've just had this incredible experience for the last 5.5 years. From that point of trauma, created a greater, higher level of awareness of what I was doing, how I was doing it, how I was acting. I was able to remove the professional face that I was showing and presenting all the time, thinking I was something that potentially I wasn't inside. And now I'm honest. Now I'm true to myself. I talk openly about my own experiences. I share that. And I'm so privileged and lucky to come onto these podcasts, to do workshops with clients, to do corporate conferences, to talk to anybody that wants to listen about mental health. Basically, that's my objective. I started my business on 2 founding thoughts. The first one was never work for anybody ever again. And thankfully, 5.5 or nearly, well, it'll be 6 years in February, 6 years later nearly, I still work for myself, which is brilliant. I'm absolutely so chuffed that I've managed to get through. There was a small little crisis in there of the pandemic, so I managed to survive through there. And second one was everything I do is very much focused on supporting people to understand more about mental health when they're struggling, especially whether that's parents, whether that's adults, whether that's people at work. And actually, if we break it all down to what society is, it's a group of humans, a collaboration of humans or community of humans who we're all the same when we break ourselves down to who we are, irrespective of colour and race and gender and everything else. And I don't see that anymore with what I do, because I just see a human being in front of me who is struggling at times or who's doing really well. And I celebrate the success and I support the challenges. And that's what I do. And over that 5.5 year journey, I've learned more than I ever learned in any of my life. If I add up all the cumulative 41 years before, I've learned more in 5 years than I learned in 41. And I'm on this journey now where I'm continuing to understand more about these subjects. I talk to thousands of people every year about their journeys with mental health. It's incredible. I'm so privileged to be where I am. It's an important role, I think, and it's one that society needs, but we need everybody to have this ability to be open and honest and share their stories and their journeys. And for me, that's what I've created. I've created a business built on that basis and those principles. Anybody that works with me in my business, they have to want to do more to help others, and that's what it's all about. So it's just been an incredible ride. I delivered a TEDx talk back in 2019 about a little pet project of mine about being a 24-hour human. We are humans all day, every day. We cannot change that, but it's the way we invest our time. That's something that we need to focus on. What else have I done? I've started a podcast myself last year, and it's just coming up to the first year anniversary on the 19th of November, or it will be the first year anniversary on the 19th of November, with 111 conversations with amazing humans recorded so far. And that's sort of a world that has just opened up its opportunities for me, I guess. And I talk where I can about these subjects. there is also another side to my story, which I think is important for people to understand some of my reason for why I do what I do and why I'm very passionate, and in particular sort of around supporting parents or others who are supporting young people, because I'm the parent of two daughters, two beautiful daughters. I've got, but one of them's an adult, so one's 19 and one is still a child but in secondary education at 14. And my eldest daughter actually has struggled for a number of years with her own mental ill health, and that's something that, you know, is still ongoing. It's something that we are still challenged with. It's something we're still battling for the right support and services to enable her to come back to the family home. She is in hospital even as we speak. So it's about keeping going. She gives me the passion and the purpose and power. And I look at my daughter who's struggled, and she has struggled since she was 15 years old. And I look at her and say, she gives me the passion and the power. She gives me purpose. And I'm not ashamed of her. I'm not ashamed of anything she's been through. I'm proud of her. I've got the most pride for her battling every single day to recover, to come home. We're there alongside her. We're fighting with her. We're putting her, when she needs to, she asks me for a hug, or she steals my Spotify account from me when I least expect it, or when I'm in the gym, like this morning. And you know what? The connection's much greater than it ever has been. We're disconnected in one way because she's not at home, but we're connected in more ways than we ever have been, because we're connected now on an emotional level where we can engage and have empathy and understand a little bit more about each other. So, that's a little bit of an introduction. I don't know. That's right, but,
no, that's a beautiful introduction.
I love life. I love people, and I hate it when people are struggling, and I really want to do the best I can with whatever I do.
You know what, hearing you, I can only think that, we all are simply connected as humans, and how easy it is for us to forget that. And we only reminded about it when we ourselves are going through a struggle, because then those struggles are the common struggle of every human being. And if you look closely, I always feel we all have the same joys, the same fears, the same challenges, the same, kind of struggles that we are going through are quite similar. And sometimes when in moments of extreme joy or in moments of extreme pain, we suddenly tap into ourselves as human beings. But why can't we just tap into that nature within us in our everyday life? And if only we could do that, probably there wouldn't be a reason for us to be so lost in the chaos of the world, isn't it?
Yeah, so true. So true. And I think that was one of the foundations for when I started talking about this 24-hour humans element. We're fixated, or people become so fixated on being too busy.
Yes.
We and this is what I was trying to say in that at TEDx, was we make excuses because we're too busy. We can't do the things we enjoy. So yes. I enjoy going for a run, but I'm too busy to go for the run. And actually what we have to do is value things slightly differently. So what am I giving up? Or why am I giving up the run? What am I doing? Is it more valuable than me doing something I enjoy? And this is where we struggle, because every day we can do amazing things. It shouldn't just be, I've got this amazing event coming up in 6 months' time. It could be, today I'm going to do some amazing thing. I wake up every morning thinking, what can I do today that's going to be amazing? Today, this is brilliant. I love doing this. So meeting you for the first time, having this conversation, to me, that's an amazing event, right? That's not a chore. That's not I've got to do that as part of my work. That's something I really enjoy.
Excited about it.
Yeah, I feel the energy start to come up. I'm talking about it, and I love that. And I look at my diary, and every week I'm looking at my diary on a weekend just to say what's coming this week, and I don't look at that and go, I've got to do that tomorrow, I've got to do this tomorrow. Of course there's some of the admin stuff that needs to be done, which sometimes is a bit of a, but it's also quite useful to get my head into the business side of business, I guess. But that's the challenge. We become so busy, we forget that we can actually still enjoy ourselves every day. We can still do great things every day, and we can do things that take care of our brains and our mental health. But we don't think it that way. So, we're fixated on busy. And yes. I don't like that word. Right?
No, we are not busy. We're just choosing to do activities that we like to do. That's the way it should be, isn't it? And, intrinsically, our human nature is something that, like I was telling you, I'm very much a spiritual person, and on Vedas and everything, ancient philosophies are very much embedded in me. And they all say that intrinsically our human nature is that we are always looking for happiness. Yep. We will always run towards something which will make us more and more happy. And that is the ultimate nature of our being. And yet we forget it. And I read on your website that you help people to achieve their maximum potential, to achieve the best organizations and people. So my question to you is, what are the common obstacles that you see that people are facing in becoming the best version of themselves? Because by nature, by law, universe has created us to be someone who is going to be naturally trying to make ourselves happy. But is happiness is the definition of happiness different for in each one of us, and is that the obstacle? But what are the common obstacles?
Wow, what a big we'll go to the universal question now, shall we? The big universe question. If I could find happiness and bottle it, I'd love to sell it, and that's the reality, isn't it? I think what we have to recognize, and this is about the reality for a lot of people, is we're all unique, we're all different. But there isn't a simple formula that says happiness looks like this. Although there was a formula recently that said the route to happiness is to lower your expectations, right? So we set monumental expectations on ourselves, far too high. We challenge ourselves too heavily, and then we get frustrated when we don't achieve, and that's difficult. So if we, and I like that thought, reduce your expectations, because we all want to do perfect things. We all want to do it the best we can. We all want to perform to the highest of our potential. We all want everything to be absolutely perfect. We don't want to make mistakes. We don't want to put spelling errors into our text. You know what? We're all humans, though.
Yes.
We make mistakes. We're not machines. We're not dictionaries. We're not, and I think that's half the battle. So the obstacle sometimes is that we put too much pressure on ourselves. And then you look at people around you and think about timekeeping. Think about how you feel when you're late for an event versus how somebody else on the other side might feel if you're only a few minutes late. I'm quite fixated on this thought. It is, it links into the 24 hours, but most of our lives revolve around time. So when we're thinking about happiness, are we happy if we're late to an event? Well, probably not. Are we happy if we're early? Well, we probably feel maybe a bit more happier. And it just is, we link everything into time. Time is a wonderful thing. And it's something that is, obviously, it's just whatever it is around us. But it becomes quite a driver to everything we do. I don't have time to do what I want. I don't have time for this. I've got too much to do and not enough time. And we hear these phrases, we hear these quotes all the time, of course, all the time. And that's something I think that stops us from enjoying things. It's,
that's so deep and so well put. We always forget about how time controls us.
Oh, 100%. We put our alarms on for in the morning. We know what time we start work. We know what time the meeting is. We know what time lunch is. We know everything is time driven. Wouldn't it be nice to take those shackles off and say, you know what? And my wife's French, and in the French culture, there is no such thing as dinner time, right? So we don't have dinner at a specific time. It's when everybody's together, when somebody says, should we have something to eat? I
resonate with that.
And I think from a cultural perspective, we can learn so much from other cultures, and you know that, of course you do. And I love that, because I think, I'm from a sort of traditionalist English background, British background, where time was very important, dinner time, lunchtime, everything was structured in such a way that it didn't give you that. I think sometimes we lose that spontaneity, that opportunity to do things that make us feel. And I know some people are really into their routines, and I have nothing wrong with that whatsoever. I think sometimes we just have to have that little bit of flexibility around. Do something you enjoy, and don't limit yourself by going, well, I've only got an hour to do that, because then I've got to do this, and it really, I don't know, that's a big answer.
That's such a beautiful thing that you mentioned. That's so interesting. But you know what, I look at the parents, because we work with so many children.
Sure.
And when they come to our courses, some of them are so tired, and I'm just asking them, what's happened? Sometimes we had a courses at 4:00 when pre-COVID times, when we were actually having face-to-face classes. And the child would be like, well, I've gone for my swimming, I've gone for my karate, I've gone for my dance, I've gone for a birthday party, and now I'm here for that. So their life is structured. This Saturday is structured as this task to do from this to this. So what you said, allowing especially children and parents that flexibility is so important, isn't it? And I totally see how that can be a biggest obstacle.
Yeah, we had the same with my daughters, well, with my youngest daughter. She still does do karate 2 times a week, and we have to drive 20 minutes, 25 minutes to go to drop her at karate, and it is very much then, okay, so on a Tuesday and a Wednesday, we're limited in what we can do, but actually, are we? Because now when I drop her at karate, I'll go for a run, or I'll go and do something else, or I'll meet a friend for a coffee, or whatever it might be. So it's about using time resourcefully. You know, we spend, or we waste, and that's the thing that frustrates me is, you know, time is something we just genuinely don't know how long we've got, right? We don't know how many hours we've got left in our life. We really don't. And that's something that we need to recognize. And when we recognize that, we say, well, I'm not going to waste any then. You know, because I might only have 24 hours left, or I might have a million hours left. But if you value it, because you'll only ever know when you're at your end, when you get to the end, you won't have that, you know, you won't really have so much recognition of when it's coming. But it's about then saying, okay, so how can I use my little micro moments? You know, I talk about golden moments every day when, you know, when you've got time for you, when you can just sit down, maybe even just with a cup of tea in the garden, or just outside, go for a walk for a few minutes. And, you know, we get caught up on this thought of, I know we were talking about this before, but, you know, self-care, people think of self-care as being, oh, I go to the gym twice a week, or I run 3 or 4 times. That's not self-care. That's part of self-care, but that's not all of it. Because every day you have the chance to say, you know what, I'm going to take a few minutes out. I talk to so many people across workplaces and, you know, families and parents, and who don't take breaks, who don't take lunch breaks, who just work through and soldier on. And you know what? There's a reason why burnout's becoming much bigger. There's a reason why stress is much higher. That's because we're not taking breaks to look after ourselves. And the things that we need to do to take care of ourselves, we're sacrificing first. And I think we need to change our mentality towards that, and think, I need to take care of myself first, because then I can do everything I need to do. And if we don't change our mentality, we're just going to continue burning ourselves. And you said it, the parents coming to those sessions who look tired, who look worn out, and they are, and I'm not saying they're not, they are, but they need to find a way to practice maybe looking and caring more for themselves. That's how I feel.
Yeah, not just the parents, the children as well. There is so much focus on our physical health now. People are starting to eat healthy, become vegan, and go to all sorts of extent to have a certain, you know, healthy lifestyle in terms of being physically fit. But is there so much focus on mental health? Are people still taking that seriously?
You know, I think it's growing. We're seeing this sort of the upsurge of well-being being quite an important part now. And when we break down well-being, just to sort of clarify that point for everybody, really, you know, well-being incorporates both physical and mental health. So it's not physical and maybe a bit of mental health. It's physical and mental, and actually they're joined together. You know, I think about my generation. When I was growing up, we only had an educational subject, and I talk about this all the time in my training, but the subject that we had at school was physical education, right? So we were taught about how to run, climb, kick a ball, whatever it might be. We knew what physical education was about. It was about being active. It was about keeping ourselves, you know, fit. And then we understood the difference between being fit or being unfit. So if you don't do the physical activities, you're not going to be fit, are you? If you eat too many sugary foods, if you drink too much alcohol, smoke, and probably didn't learn too much about that at school, but you know what I mean. We understood the difference between being fit or being unfit. And we also understood, and this is the reality that I often share with people, is we understood that if we didn't take care of ourselves and we weren't fit, or we were unfit, the risks of developing other potential challenges, illnesses, becomes much greater. Diabetes, heart disease, lung disease, and all the different diseases. So we understood that. But I never had a subject at school called mental health education. Yes. And so this is the challenge. I'm an adult, I'm a grown adult, and I have grown adults attending my training who say, I've never learned about mental health. So what is it? Firstly, they can't define it, so it's difficult. But then when you start to use this parallel world of physical health and say, look, that's what we did at school. Now, it'd be nice, and this is what we're trying to bring in now, is younger people's mental health awareness, so they understand what it is. If you understood that actually all those physical things that you did also influenced your mental health, because you felt happier, you felt better, you felt more content, you were feeling less stressed, or maybe you're feeling more stressed when you're feeling unhealthy and unfit. And that's the thing that we need to bring to light, is we do all know about mental health. We just don't realize that we know about it. We talk about mental health all the time. And that's the revelation that I give to managers. When do you talk to your team or your staff about their mental health? And it's often, and 90% I would say when somebody is struggling. And I said, that's not true. I said, you talk about mental health all the time, but you just don't realize. And they say, well, what do you mean? And I say, so Ekta, you know, if I asked you this morning how you're feeling, and you said, I feel really happy, I'm really excited, there's some great things coming up, I'm meeting this guy called Matt for a podcast recording today, and I've got some plans later, I'm going to see some friends. That is a positive mental health conversation. But then the opposite end, which is, Ekta, how are you feeling? You know what, I'm just feeling a bit overwhelmed today. I'm tired, I'm stressed, I've had a lot of things going on recently. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to do the things later, meeting up with friends and so on. And that is a negative mental health conversation. And as soon as we start to understand that actually we understand, or we hear each other talking about mental health all the time, life becomes a much more interesting place. We understand. So when you're struggling, I can then say, Ekta, talk to me. What's going on? Is there anything I can do to support you today? I can't fix the reason you're tired. I can't make you sleep more. I can listen and I can understand that. And that is something we all, as family members, parents, as colleagues, as managers, as leaders, or whatever, as humans, I guess is probably the word I should use there, we can do better. So valuing that. We know about mental health. We just didn't realize that it's all there.
Yes, and when it comes to physical health, we can actually see the changes that are happening to our body, and then we realize that something needs to be fixed within us, and then obviously the action to do that is more vigorous. But mental health is something that we can't really see, and we don't often realize that it's a simple act of just asking or being kind to someone, or just smiling at strangers, or just telling someone I'm here. These are the subtle actions that can lead to a very larger positive outcome.
Absolutely, you're right. And simple stuff, actually, we get fixated on, oh, you need to see the doctor, you need to get medication, let's stop thinking that way first. Let's start thinking about, how can I make a little bit of a difference? I help people to have conversations about mental health. I'm also a Samaritan. I've been a Samaritan for 6 years now, listening to people tell their stories, and often they've never spoken to anybody. And I think that's such a shame that people feel that they can't talk to somebody, a family member or friend. And that's what Samaritans really exist for. And sometimes just small things, just giving somebody a little bit of, back to that reality of time, but giving somebody a little bit of your time just to say, look, tell me what's happening. I'm here to listen. Can you help? And that's where we sometimes fail, because we think, I don't have that time to do that. And this is the challenge, isn't it? We think it's not our business. We think it's not for us to solve or to support, but it is. Just by a smile, just by a message. I send text messages to friends randomly, just saying, hey, how are you doing?
How are you doing? Yes.
And it doesn't take long. I also, one thing that I do, those micro things, I put polls out on LinkedIn once a week. I'll always put a poll out on LinkedIn, just as a thought. And it's a poll that often is about how people feel. So sometimes, the top one will be, I feel excited, I'm motivated. I love that. Of course, that's brilliant. Next one will be, I feel okay. And then there'll be sort of a couple of negative ones in there, more about, I feel a bit anxious or worried, I feel a bit stressed. And I will tell you now, and I don't think anybody's ever really shown this or knows this, but when people put in that they're feeling stressed or anxious or worried, I will send that person a message, right? Okay. So I will send them a message to say, I see you, I hear you, and I'm sorry that you're struggling at the moment, and I hope that everything, changes soon and everything's going to be fine. And I love the impact that has, because it people come back and actually, it's just a nice thing to do. It's just that's how I feel. I'm doing something, not because I want anything from it. I don't expect any business or things like that. I do it because I'm genuinely concerned when somebody says they're worried or anxious or concerned about something. And we can do small things like that. And it's simple. But sometimes, because we think, oh, well, I just want the outcome of the poll. And actually, the poll outcome to me isn't that important. It's about when people show those small challenges or those things that they often aren't telling others about. I want them to know that I can see it, and that I'm never going to share who these people are. I'm never going to identify them to anybody. It's very much privacy or private between us. But it helps, doesn't it? And it helps a person feel somebody heard me.
Yes, and that's a huge part of expression being a huge part of this whole mental health world. How often do we feel comfortable to express our deepest thoughts, even if friends are asking us, how are you feeling? Well, I'm okay. How many times we just say, I'm okay, when we really want to say, you know what, I'm really struggling here. I'm really not good. I really would love it if we could just go for a small coffee or something and you could just hear me out. So that's how often do we kind of stops them ourselves. So for someone who's listening to us right now, and thinking that, yes, I don't feel good most of the times when I say I'm okay, but what do I do about it? What are the changes? If I have to understand how to express myself, how do I approach people and tell them I need more support, I need more love? Or how do I find that support within me? Because I completely believe that that empowerment, because like I said, my core is empowering people. That's where I work. That's who I am. And I feel that it has to start from yourself first. Before you look out for support, there has to be something inside you that has to tell you, I'm there to listen to. So you have to first express it to yourself, find the courage to express it to yourself. So for someone who's listening to all of this and wondering, am I not expressing enough? What are the simple reminders that you would like to give them?
You know, you're so right in terms of sort of the awareness and observing your own well-being. You know, I didn't for 20 years. That's the thing that crept up to me. You know, I didn't notice my behaviors, my habits, the things that I was doing that weren't good for me, you know, mentally or physically. And I think that self-awareness, sometimes we only get it when something happens. There has to be that sort of moment of impact, doesn't it, where you go, right, I need to think about what's happened. I need to consider what I've been doing. I need to reflect. You know, I just want to encourage everybody, think about where you are right now. Think about how you feel right now. And I'm not saying ask and tell everybody, but think about how you feel right at this moment. Now, you may feel happy, you may feel worried, you may feel concerned, anxious, whatever. But think about then why, what's going on, what's making you feel that way? Because one of the biggest challenges, especially with mental illness and things like depression, is we just don't realize we've got depression. We don't see it. It's just who I am. It's part of me. I can do a lot of self-reflection to my whole, years of my career, my corporate career. And I know by reflecting and by looking back at moments that there were moments where I would definitely have been diagnosed with having depression. I'm sure of it. I'm absolutely positive. And the reason is because I can look at those moments and start to identify things that were happening, how I was feeling at those moments, the things that I was doing for my work. And a lot of it was I was isolated and lonely because I was traveling all over the world, and I was in hotels on my own, and I'd be drinking because nobody was there, and it was on expenses, and I'd eat rubbish food, and I wouldn't go to the gym. And sometimes we need to take those moments where we say, what am I doing right now with myself? What do I do? And so when I look back at those, I can say, and there was also other signs, which I think we miss signs and we miss things. And one of the signs, and this is interesting for anybody that's a parent, was my children, and I was probably in my mid-30s at this point, my children started calling me grumpy old man. As a mid-30-year-old man, I didn't feel like I was an old man, firstly.
Yes.
And I definitely wasn't grumpy. And if I was grumpy, it was because of everybody else. I didn't take that responsibility. So what were they actually saying to me? Well, they were telling me, because they were only little, they were not even teens or in tens, they were telling me what they were seeing. And I didn't listen to it, because I didn't want to hear what they were saying. So I made excuses. And we do that, don't we? We make excuses because we think it's everybody else to blame. It's like performance at work. If you don't perform well, we tend to try and find reasons why we haven't performed well, which tend to be because of other people.
Blaming it on other people and situations.
And so I think for all of us, we just need to sometimes, that look in the mirror can be hard, but also we need to just take moments where we take stock. Checking in with ourselves. I've become very aware now of my own mental health, and I talk about that with people, and I share that with people. And the other piece then to that is to say, I find it really sad when people say they haven't got anybody to talk to. I really do. And when I'm having calls as a Samaritan, and I'm sure all Samaritans would say exactly the same. It's sad when somebody tells you a story that's so difficult about what's been going on for them, yet they can't tell their friends or their family. And you ask why? Why can't you tell your family that? And I say, because they've got their own problems. They don't want to hear mine. And I find that really hard, because we all have problems. Let's be honest. We all have challenges. We all have worries and concerns and anxieties. So why can't we say what they are? Why can't we tell people? We fear that we're going to be judged on that. We fear that we're going to be a failure. We fear that people are going to see beyond the professional, perfect vision that we show the world. Fake book exists. Of course it does, because who puts their rubbish photos on there? We only put the best ones. We only put the greatest light in. We only put the angle that makes us look the best. This is the worry. We need to change the way that we view that. And to do that, we need to just think about, okay, how am I really feeling? And there's so many aspects to all of this. Of course there is. And we could spend 3, 4, 5 talking about this, not just learn what's going on. And when this changes, make sure you notice it.
You notice and you accept it. So that's really important, to accept and not take the blame, accept the responsibility of change in your life. And coming back to parents, I just want to reflect back on the fact that you are struggling as a parent as well. You're handling a very delicate situation in your own life as a parent. And obviously now you understand the situation probably better than what you understood 20 years back.
Yep.
Yes, so which clearly reflects the fact that as parents, we must not only be taught how to take care of our children and what they should be fed the most, how they should look the best, what are the parties, what are the social activities for them. We should also be taught how best to understand our child. Because I'm more into spirituality, I would say spiritually how best to understand how to connect with your child as a human first, and not just as someone you're just taking care of, feeding or something like that. Do you think if you had gone to the same situation 20 years back, you would have handled it differently? And what is your message to parents here today as a parent?
Absolutely. Would I have handled it differently 20 years ago? Absolutely. I had no idea. My wife struggled with postnatal depression after the birth of our first daughter. And I'd be honest, and I always hold my hand up for this, I just thought she was a bit moody. I thought she was just having a bit of a low mood. I didn't understand it. My knowledge then wasn't great, because why would it be? I was doing what I wanted to do for me. I wasn't looking after really what other people were going through. So yeah, definitely. And I hold my hands up to that. And but I've learned a lot. I've learned a lot through that. I would say to parents, the biggest challenge that we face is, because we are the parents, we want to fix everything. So when our child has something that's broken, a toy or or if they're injured or if anything else is going on, we fix it, don't we? We repair the toy, or we replace the toy, or we support the child if they go to. The challenge we have when we're talking about emotions and the mental side of supporting young people, children, any age really, is we can't fix their challenges that are going on inside. So if they feel lonely, if they feel worried, if they feel anxious, by us saying, don't worry about it, it'll be okay, it's all okay, don't worry, it doesn't change the feeling. Yeah. So, which is exactly the same in adulthood as well, by the way. So it's not that we just do this with children. The thing we have to learn to do is to listen to our children and listen to what they're trying to say to us, because we're very good at cutting in with our answers. We've got the answer to every question. Why don't we? Well, of course we do, because we're the parent. We know everything, right? Once they get to teenage, they're going to say, well, they know everything. So there is a bit of a head banging battle, right? Yes. We do cross challenge, there are some challenges. But all I would say is we need to learn to communicate well. And communicating means listening, and listening without judgment, listening without the fear of, if they tell you something that you don't want to hear, if they tell you they've done something that you think is wrong, of course there's discipline that needs to be, administered, or whatever that might be, maybe take the phone away or ground them for a bit or whatever. But making that conversation open is so important, because if we don't make it open, if we just keep on applying the rules of parenting that we, and some of us grew up in systems where parenting, I look at my daughter, my wife and I had this conversation just the other day. Our daughter now talks to us in a way that we would never have dreamt of to our parents.
Because our parents, our challenges are different, their challenges are different, and we can't compare how we grew.
And my daughter says that often. I say when I was at school, and she say, but it's not about when you were at school, it's about you. And you know what? It takes a long time for you to go, okay, I appreciate it. You are in a different place. I was at school in the 80s, and you're now in the school in the 2020s, and it's not the same place. It doesn't work the same way. The dynamics have totally changed. And that's the challenge. Is we sort of always grew up going, I'm never going to turn into my parents. I'm never going to turn into my parents. And oh my God, Dad, and it's the challenge. So I have to pull myself back from that. But I think it does come down to listening now. The stresses for young people today at all ages, and this is a reality. We see that across the board with mental health challenges. The stresses for young people today are much greater than I grew up with. I can tell you that.
Yes.
Absolutely. We didn't understand mental health as well back, 30 years ago, 35 years ago. We need to understand it now, because our young people are struggling. They really are. Their identity is being challenged by, all the things that are going on around them, the communities that they live within, the social economic structures they're within. Everything is challenged. We need to support those challenges, because why is that important? Well, when you know that 75% of all mental health issues start before the age of 18, that's quite scary. So we need to manage and support people much better as young people. I think like the Children's Adolescent Mental Health Service, CAMS, is under so much pressure. The referral times are ridiculous. We have so many challenges. So how can we help that change? We need to learn as parents or carers or those, and for children of all ages, from primary, right the way through to secondary, even college and sixth form and university, of course. But we need to learn how to engage in those conversations, because if we don't, and if we just keep going on a trajectory, it's not going to be great. The second coming of the pandemic is going to be the mental health impact. We talked about it about especially young children, 2-3 years old, who were born through a pandemic and they've never known different to the pandemic. It's almost like that Stockholm syndrome of, there's if you're inside it for so long, it's the way that you feel that this system works. And so we have to be careful with that. We can't just force people to change. We can't just say, it's all right now, you can go and hug your nan, or you can do these things. Because if they've grown up with the fear of why they can't, how do you unravel that so that they can? Go.
No. Like, I was just trying to come back to the point that I was telling you, that I met this 3-year-old, and the way that child was just sitting very timidly in one corner, just engaging with the iPad or the phone, and not with the humans, because he was so scared. He was so scared to be with humans apart from his family. He hasn't seen anyone. And that was scary, because the world for them is on the phone.
Yeah. It's a different world, isn't it? It's a different reality. It's one that we accept. And sometimes, I don't want to go into the whole sort of how we parent and what we do and how we do it. And, it's convenient for us at times, isn't it, to give a child an iPhone or a pad or whatever, whatever it is. But it also, we need to reconnect. We need to have that ability to engage with other humans. My life was spent outside when I was a kid, with my mates, playing football in the park, or, meeting up and just whatever. And I think that's something that is a bit of a challenge now, isn't it? And it's all been founded on fear, and that's the problem. We make people fearful to do those things. It's dangerous to be outside. It's dangerous to go to a park. And I know that's a reality in some places. I really do. And I'm not trying to say that isn't, but it is a system based on fear. Look at all the news that was generated during COVID. It was all fear-based. It was all based on bad things, negatives. How can we have positive mental health when all we hear is about death, doom, gloom, grey things, dark, and difficult situations? It's so challenged. And, we have to switch off, don't we? I love the thought of going off grid. I love the thought of turning everything off. And, I always say this thing about technology is driving our lives, right? It's driving us crazy in many ways, but it's driving our lives. And when technology, you think about it, your phone battery is on 1% and you have that anxiety of, oh my God, I need to find a socket, right? I need to find a socket or somewhere I can plug this in. And when technology is running low on batteries, we plug it in. The problem is, as human beings, when we're running low on batteries and energy and everything else, we don't unplug ourselves. We carry on. We run on zero energy. We run on low batteries. And we don't think about unplugging. And that's what we've got to change. So technology, we plug into a wall, but humans, we have to unplug from technology. We need to put it down. We need to walk away. We need to have a break. We need to breathe. Please get outside, take some air, during the hours of daylight. If you're working, and this is something, it's interesting. I was training yesterday, just quickly, and somebody said, I went out at lunchtime with, to get outside, to go for a walk, because during the hours that I'm not working, it's dark. And so I said, okay, well, that's a great idea, isn't it? So if you're working an 8 till 6, maybe take the break in the middle so that you get out during the daylight, and maybe you work till 6:30. I'm sure bosses and employers out there will be okay with that. Why are you doing it? Because I need to get some sunlight. I need some vitamin D on me. I'm very lucky. I seem to be sort of covered in sunlight. For anybody that's listening to this, you won't see it, but it's important because it makes us feel better. Getting that daylight, natural daylight outside, even in the winter, put a coat on and a hood up, it doesn't matter. But getting outside is so important. So people say, I can't do it, I haven't got time, because I finish work at 6, and by 6:30 or 6 after 6, even if you finish at 5 now, it's dark. So it's about making those choices. I hope that helps for people.
Yes, I'm sure. It's just been so wonderful just talking to you, but I'll just end this thing with storytelling, because you mentioned how stories were very important to you, and how they are a very integral part of what you are. And because, storytelling is what Authoring Me works with, and I work very closely with. What is the importance of storytelling for you? And is that a tool that we can really use?
Oh, honestly, well, I can talk about it forever. I'm so lucky. I hear stories every single day from people, and I think the thing is, we all have a story, don't we? We all have a journey, and that, for me, this whole journey of life is an incredible adventure, and even I get people talking to me saying, or when I do podcast recordings saying, I don't really have a story. And then they start telling you this story and you're going, this is incredible. And the reason it's incredible is because it's their unique story. Every single person, children have these unique stories, you know, their perspective of life is so different. And we all have a different perspective, which is a beautiful thing. It's hard and it's a challenge at times because we don't always agree on the perspectives. But when we start to agree, we're just going to learn from each other. We can do amazing, magical things, you know, and that's what this is all about. For me, storytelling and listening to inspiring stories is such a powerful tool. It energizes me to understand more. I remember when I first started, just as sort of one thought, when I first started in this world of volunteering, listening to people's stories, you know, because that's ultimately what they're telling you. They're telling you a story, whether it's true, false, indifferent, made up, whatever, it doesn't matter. But your world is so small. It's based around your core of family. It's based around your core of your community. And as you come out from that core, you know less about people. You know, so the people around you at work, you probably don't know them, probably don't know anything about them. Most people don't know much about their colleagues at all, yes. Where they live, how many children they might have, and so on. So some people do. But the reality was, when I went into that space where there was this sort of, I've got a small world, small bubble. As soon as you start hearing stories, it grows. Your awareness of the world starts to expand. Absolutely. Your awareness of other cultures, other people, other beings becomes much greater. And when you start to understand this is a wonderful place, you can start to do magical things yourself. You can start to engage in better conversations. I understand you, Ekta, because I've spoken to lots of people from your culture, from the background that you have, for yourself. I've had incredible stories that I've heard. And I just think, you know what? We're all different and we all carry these wonderful journeys or stories with us. And we need to have the ability to share them, because magical things will happen when we share those stories, definitely, at whatever age we are. And, you know, it continues, doesn't it? It's you know, this is another page of a book that I'm building, or that, you know, in my head, of course. So I think they're so important in everything we do. So important.
Wow, thank you so much, Matthew. It was just so wonderful to speak to you. And I know we could have spoken on so many more things for a longer time, but maybe for another podcast. But today, I think what you have said is going to really help many people understand themselves. And I hope it does make you at least reflect, take a pause and reflect in what point of life are you? And is there something that's telling you inside that something's not right and it needs to change? And maybe that change will start with you today. So thank you so much for joining me today. It's an absolute pleasure.